In 1987, a man walked into Marlboro Psychiatric Hospital in New Jersey and applied for a job. On his application, he used the social security number of a deceased convicted felon. His identity claimed he was a convicted rapist with a violent criminal history. The hospital never ran a background check. They never verified his references. They never even made a phone call. They hired him immediately and assigned him to Cottage 16, the basement ward housing the most violent and psychotic patients in the entire facility. Some had murdered people outside the hospital. Others had killed fellow patients inside it. But this man was not a criminal. He was New Jersey State Senator Richard Cody, and what he witnessed over the following weeks would eventually shut this place down for good. Marlboro Psychiatric Hospital opened in 1931 on nearly 500 acres of rural land in Monmouth County, New Jersey. The facility was designed as a network of Tudor-style cottages, each housing around 55 patients. Underground tunnels connected the buildings, stretching beneath the sprawling grounds. By its peak in the 1950s, over 3,000 patients lived here. But from the very beginning, something was deeply wrong. As early as the 1940s, state investigations documented patient beatings by staff. By the 1960s, inspectors found severe understaffing, dangerous fire hazards, and patients warehoused in basements and hallways. The 1970s brought something far worse. On November 2, 1979, 131 patients fell violently ill after eating contaminated meat served in the hospital kitchen. Within days, 5 of them were dead. The cause was Clostridium perfringens, a bacterium that thrives in improperly stored food. The conditions that allowed this were not accidental. They were the result of years of neglect, corner cutting, and staff indifference. 5 people died because nobody cared enough to store meat at the correct temperature, but the deaths did not stop there. If you think food poisoning was the worst of it, the story is just getting started. In May 1987, the Public Advocate's Office launched its 8th formal investigation into patient deaths at Marlboro. Not the first, not the second, the 8th. What they documented was beyond negligence. It was systematic abandonment of human beings. A woman had wandered away from her ward one winter evening. The staff did not conduct a head count. They did not check her room. They did not notice she was missing for 48 hours. 2 full days passed before anyone realized she was gone. By the time they searched the grounds, they found her body outside. She had frozen to death in the New Jersey cold, alone, within walking distance of the building where she was supposed to be safe. Another woman had a documented eating disorder so severe that her medical file explicitly stated she could only consume liquid food. This was clearly noted for any staff member to see. Someone gave her a peanut butter sandwich. She choked to death in front of people who should have known better, people who did know better. A 3rd patient had dangerously low sodium levels flagged in her medical charts. This condition, if untreated, causes the brain to swell. It is fatal. For 6 consecutive weeks, doctors and nurses reviewed her file and did nothing. No treatment, no intervention, no change in care. She died from brain swelling that could have been prevented with basic medical attention. Perhaps the most disturbing case involved a man who became agitated and was placed in physical restraints. Hospital policy required that restraints be loosened every 2 hours to prevent blood clots from forming in the legs. This man remained strapped to his bed for 80 hours over 5 days. 80 hours. Nobody loosened the straps. Nobody checked on his circulation. He died from blood clots that traveled to his lungs. The restraints that were meant to calm him killed him instead. These were not freak accidents. These were patients whose deaths were directly caused by staff members who could not be bothered to do the minimum their jobs required. And the physical neglect was only part of the ROT eating this institution from the inside. Senator Cody worked several night shifts during his undercover operation. On his very first shift, he found a nurse lying on a couch watching television while patients sat in filth nearby. He documented overcrowded wards where dozens of patients had nothing to do, no activities, no therapy, and no one to talk to. The staff treated their shifts as an opportunity to relax rather than to work. Patients were treated as inconveniences to be managed, not people to be helped. Cody walked the halls of Cottage 16, the basement level where the most severely ill patients were kept. Men who could not speak, men who were actively psychotic, men who had committed murder and been deemed unfit to stand trial. These were the patients the hospital had given up on, and this was where Marlboro assigned a new hire with a fabricated criminal background and zero training. Cody later wrote that patients at Marlboro were treated with less care than the average prisoner in a state penitentiary. He described an institution that had completely abandoned its mission. The hospital was not healing anyone, it was warehousing them until they died. His expose in New Jersey Monthly magazine triggered outrage across the state. A formal Senate task force investigation launched in 1994. What they uncovered confirmed everything Cody had witnessed, and more. The official report described a tableau of waste, fraud, thievery, and corruption in which the squandering of taxpayer dollars had become business as usual. Employees were accepting bribes from vendors. Suppliers were overbilling the hospital and pocketing the difference. Inventory was vanishing from warehouses. Chemicals were being purchased from companies that were not even authorized to sell to state institutions. The hospital's annual budget was $55 million, and a staggering amount of it was being stolen by the very people entrusted to run the facility. The hospital also operated a prison work camp on its grounds. Inmates from state correctional facilities were brought to Marlboro to perform labor around the property. In 1977, 2 of these prisoners raped a female patient on the hospital grounds. The following year, in 1978, 151 patients escaped from the facility. One of those escapees had previously murdered his father and brother with a machete. He was found in Marlboro Township trying to steal a car tire. The surrounding community was terrified. Residents purchased handguns at record rates. Lawsuits were filed demanding the state shut down the hospital. Families no longer felt safe in their own neighborhoods. In 1995, Governor Christine Todd Whitman made the decision to close Marlboro Psychiatric Hospital permanently. On July 1, 1998, after 67 years of operation, the doors were finally shut for good. But the story does not end there. Across the highway from the main facility, down a narrow gravel road most people never notice, sits a small cemetery. Over 920 patients are buried here. Their headstones carry no names, only numbers. When patients died at Marlboro and no family came forward to claim the body, the hospital buried them in sequential plots marked with small stones. Marker 1, Marker 53, Marker 476, Marker 924. In 1991, the hospital finally installed a pavilion listing the names that correspond to each number. But for 60 years before that, these people lay beneath the ground, identified only by digits, forgotten by their families, failed by the system meant to care for them, erased. 924 human beings buried under numbers instead of names. Today, the buildings are gone. The state demolished them between 2013 and 2015. The land now belongs to Monmouth County, which plans to open public hiking trails across the property by the end of this year. Soon, families will walk their dogs and push their strollers across the same ground where patients froze to death, choked on food they were never supposed to eat, and died in restraints that nobody bothered to loosen for 80 hours. The cemetery remains. The numbered stones still stand in rows, waiting for visitors who rarely come. If this story disturbed you, leave a comment and tell me which moment hit the hardest. And if you want more stories about the dark history of places like this, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Some places are not meant to be forgotten. Marlboro Psychiatric Hospital is one of them.